In this video, we're going to take a look at how to model the PLTW Automata Box Kit, which is made from 1/4-inch MDF pieces, and how to assemble that in Fusion 360. First off, I'm starting off with an untitled design file. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I've got a folder created to which I'm going to go ahead and save this in. I'm just going to call this Automata Design. So we're going to be adding quite a few things to it, not just the box. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Automata Design, say save. And in order to start off, I'm going to create a new component. And with this new component, I'm going to call this Box Bottom. And we'll say OK. And that's going to activate the new component and bring it down into our browser. So now we can see that this is active because of the radio button. From here, I'm going to start to model. I'm going to create a sketch. And I'm going to choose the top plane in order to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle, and I'm going to choose the center rectangle using the origin as our center point. And then before I click to draw the shape, I can actually type in the dimensions. So this is going to be 5 inches wide. To move to the other box, I press the tab key, and this is going to be 4 inches deep. And when I hit enter, that will go ahead and lock and set those dimensions in there. I can go ahead and say finish sketch. And I'm going to go ahead and extrude, and I'm going to extrude this a distance of 1/4 of an inch or 0.25, and I can say OK. One of the things that I can do is I'm going to go ahead and go under modify and go to physical material, and I'm going to apply the MDF, which is one of the options within our menu here. So if I scroll down, I can look for wood, expand that folder, and I can grab MDF, which is medium density fiberboard, drag and drop it onto the part. It doesn't really have an appearance, but what I can do is I can right click on this and say edit, and I'm going to click on the advanced option, and in the appearance tab under parameters where it says color, the little drop down arrow, I'm going to choose image, and I've actually got an image which can be found of MDF board, which can be found, and say I'm going to go ahead and select it and say open. And it can be found in our Google Drive shared folder, so that way you can use it. So MDF board, you can see it'll apply. I'll go ahead and say apply and then cancel, and then that way it'll choose that appearance every time. And I can go ahead and say close. Now I'm ready to start modeling the other pieces of the box. So this is going to be a top-down modeling method. So first thing I'm going to do is my next step is to make sure the top level is active. And then, so the top level of the assembly is going to be active there. Then I choose new component. This one is going to be called, I'll call this box right side, and I'll say OK. You'll notice this will ghost out a little bit, but now I can go ahead and look and see that the component is active, the new one. Click create sketch, and rather than choosing one of the principal work planes like I did on the first part, I'm actually going to choose this side of the box. So I'm going to click of the box bottom, so that way I can go ahead and draw it like from the side. From here I can use a 2-point rectangle. I can actually reference the geometry from the box bottom, so I'll click on the corner, and I'm not going to click, I'm just going to touch the box corner, the opposite corner, and that way it kind of locks that in. But the sides are going to be a 4x4, so I'll type in those and hit enter. While I'm at it, I'm going to use a circle. And while I'm going to kind of just touch right about the middle, the midpoint of this line, which you'll see the midpoint symbol show up, which is a triangle. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to touch this one as well. And when I get right in the center, you're going to see two blue dashed lines that'll help keep that lined up. So I'll click, and then I can go ahead and draw. This is going to be a 1/2 inch diameter hole that gets drilled in there. And we do need to have a few more constraints in there. You'll see that it is blue. So I'm going to use the horizontal vertical constraint. I'm going to hold the shift key, and I'm going to trace along until I find that midpoint again, and I'm going to click when I see the midpoint, and then I'm just going to click the center of the circle. It'll show up and show that's constrained. I'm going to do the same thing holding the shift key along this edge, and then I can choose the center of the circle, and then it'll fully constrain it. You could have used the other two sides or the bottom. Either one would work, but I just happen to use these in order to make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to get off the constraint, and then I'll go ahead and say finish sketch. So from here, I can go ahead and I can extrude. I'm going to click and I'm going to leave the hole alone and I'm going to go back. So this is going to be a negative 0.25 extrusion. And I can say OK, adding the appearance of MDF to it. So when I open this up, I can grab and drag and drop that part or that material onto the part. All right, I'm ready for the next one. I'm going to repeat the same process to the other side. So I'll activate the component, activate the top level, and create a new component. This one I'll call box left side. And I'm going to turn this around, creating a new sketch on the side there. Here I can actually just kind of trace over the other box side. And when I do that, it's going to be fully constrained because we're using predefined geometry. And I'm going to do the same thing with the circle. And what's actually going to happen is that's going to show up as being purple, as almost like that's projected geometry, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and say, finish the sketch. I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to do a negative 0.25 extrusion. And let's add a physical material of MDF to our part. And that should finish out. So activating the top level again, here's our box, almost completed. Next thing we're going to do, now that we got the top level activated, new component, call this box back. We'll put the back on. I'm going to rotate using the view cube around to the back, create a new sketch, and then I'm going to choose the back face of the box. Utilizing 2-point rectangle, I'll grab from down here in the corner, just go over here to this top corner to fill in the space of the opening there. Say finish sketch, extrude, choose the rectangle, go in negative 0.25, and then say OK. Grab our material. And now we're ready for the top portion. All right, making sure the top level is active. New component, box top. Create a new sketch. I'm going to choose the top of the box sides. Utilizing 2-point rectangle, I'll use the top corner, the back corner, and I'm going to go all the way to the opposite corner. Notice we don't have to put any dimensions in. We'll finish the sketch. We'll extrude. You'll notice only this part is highlighted, so we will need to grab this other little sliver there. 0.25 extrusion, and put in our physical material. And activate the top level of the assembly. So now we have our box. One thing that we need to do is, even though this all looks like it is put together, it really isn't. So here's what I'm going to do first. Over in my browser, I'm going to right click on the box bottom. I need to ground this component. So that way it is going to be the part that stays grounded in the assembly. So if I try to click and drag on it, it won't move. But if I click any of these parts, even though they look like, I'm going to go ahead and hit undo to bring those parts back to the correct positions. However, I've got them positioned so then that way they can already be assembled. So in this case, under the Assemble tab, or under the Assemble grouping, we want to go through and use the As-Built joint. So I can choose that. I'm going to choose the bottom, and I'm going to choose the box left side. I'm going to apply a rigid joint. If I press the play button, it'll make a shaking motion, so I'm just going to say OK. I'm going to go As-Built joint again. Let's do the bottom to the right side. As-Built joint one more time. I'm going to turn this around. Let's do the bottom to the back. And then let's do As-Built joint. Let's do the top to either the side, the back, or the other side. Either one would work. So now, just to double check this, if I click and drag on any of the parts, none of them should move out of place. And now we have our Automata Box modeled and constrained together, and we'll be using this for future videos in order to create our designs, as well as some of our automata standardized parts to use in the final automata design that you create.